Another day, another destiny. Why condemn this man to slavery? Did you ever see Les Mis?
No. I think
you never saw Les Mis?
Not the play. I saw the movie, but it's such a fuzzy memory
of seeing Les Mis. Did you see the movie with Hugh Jackman?
No. Was it Liam Neeson that was in the first one?
I don't know. It may be Liam Neeson and not Hugh Jackman.
It's such a fuzzy memory.
I don't know. I just know I'm obsessed. Do you know that my high school quote was from Les Mis?
Oh, no, I did not.
It was. That's why it's like Anna's thinking about that now for school. And she's like, I have to do my senior quote. And I'm like, make it good. Like, make it something. Don't make it like something that you're going to, that's so temporary right now. Like something that you've loved forever. Yes. But when my aunt worked for the hospital, they used to get like these discount tickets for like the employees of the hospital.
Nice.
And we would go to see Les Mis all the time. And then I realized as a student back in 1956, when I was a student, I could get tickets for $15.
Shakespeare did it in the Park Live.
I never got those tickets. Did you ever see that?
No.
We're the worst New Yorkers.
I know. I've seen other ones though. I've saw like Fiddler on the Roof and what else did we see? Mamma Mia. Dan hated that one.
You saw Hamilton with me.
I did see Hamilton. I saw, what else? Book of Mormon. I've seen some good ones. Although I have to say Fiddler on the Roof was a really spectacular one. That was a long, long time ago. And that was really good.
Fun fact about Fiddler on the Roof. My son knows most of the words to the songs.
He could be like a, what are the backup?
What do they call that? Oh, we're the worst people. Understudy.
Yeah.
That's it. But I don't know what we were talking about it the other day. Like we were watching TV and then we were talking about Fiddler on the Roof. And I was like, play that song. I told Alexa to play it. And he was singing. And I'm like, I'm not understanding something. Where, like, how do you even know this? But he's like, I like it. And it was because there is a popular artist Gwen Stefani, that has the beat to If I Was a Rich Man.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And that is how he got to Fiddler on the Roof, because that's the kind of kid I have.
All right. Nothing wrong.
So today I want to introduce you to a mom. And guess what?
What?
She has twins. I'm glad you guessed. And she's been all over the place. Okay, now here's the funniest part about her. I'm going to say her name. You don't know her for realsies. But her name is Tamara Sam. But Lauren, for some reason, I kept getting stuck on her name. And I was like, is it Tamara? Is it Tamara? Is it Tamara?
I think it depends on where you live, like in the world and how they pronounce it.
But now I'm second guessing that it's even Tamara. But Lauren, I got so stressed about saying her name during the podcast that it was overwhelming me, because I'm like, oh, I would love to say her name right now and like address her personally, but I can't.
You avoided saying her name, I bet.
Do you ever have that happen? Like where you're like, what's her name?
When I forget the person's name, or if I forget how to pronounce it correctly, because it's something unique. Yes.
That's not good. No. What's your trick? Like if you forget somebody's name, do you have like a trick?
I try to get them to like introduce themselves to someone. I know that's a trick. Like I'll be like, oh, this is my husband, Dan.
Yes.
Dan. And then they'll introduce themselves or something like that. Or I say to someone who knows them, what's their name?
Yes. That's what I was going to say. If I were with you.
Yes. But what if I didn't know her name? What if I didn't know? I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah. But if like, let's say, hopefully you didn't know the person, I would be like, Lauren.
Go introduce yourself.
Yes. And then come back.
Or I'd look for like a name tag if we're at an event.
I try to always get people to have name tags. Even in Twiniversity class.
Like if people introduce themselves to me, I try to say their name in my head like 3 times so I can kind of remember it. But I screw things up with names sometimes.
It stays temporarily.
Yeah.
And then it's gone forever.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem that I had with this podcast. But the funny part is that has like nothing to do with the podcast, of course. So she is a daughter of a doctor, of an OB. Okay. And her sister's an OB too. And then I believe her mom's a nurse. So she was talking about how, like, if you come from a medical family, they call it the nurse curse, because you go in and like doctors are going to assume that you think you know better than them. Mm. And how like her theory was like, this is going to be like an explicit episode because we use the word shit. And since it's already labeled explicit, we could say that. But her topic is like that you need to Ted Lasso the shit out of the nurses and doctors. Mm. And you need to be like, come on, team. And we're going to do this, and like make them feel like they're part of your family and part of this team, and be inspirational and be positive. And if you could win them over early on in your pregnancy, then you're going to have a better delivery experience. Okay. Interesting. Do you think that would be you, but you would do that naturally?
Yes, that's me, but that's who I am. And I don't think some people are like that. I think it depends on the personality.
I think it does too. I think that it's if you need to be told to be extra motivating, mm-hmm. then this is going to be the episode to listen to. If it comes to your nature, then it's just going to be affirming what you already thought.
Absolutely.
But I struggled so much with her name. I still feel bad about it. I actually text her after because I said her name wrong, I think twice, and she corrected me. I was so embarrassed, Lauren.
You're only human.
I know, but still, I hate that because I hate when people call me Emily. That's the name that people call me most. Yes.
Emily?
All the time. Like if I think because I speak too fast.
Oh, and they think that's what you're saying?
Yes.
I get Laura, Lori, Lorraine I've gotten, but
Lorraine's good.
But
I like it.
Lauren, sometimes they're like, what's your name?
Yeah, it's Lorraine. We'll just go with that from now on. Are you ready to meet Tamara? Are you ready to meet her?
Yes.
All right. All right, guys, without further ado, here is Tamara Sam. Hey, Tamara, are you ready to play our Let's Ted Lasso the crap out of our hospital team?
Yes, I am ready to play.
Actually, could we make this into a game?
Yeah, let's do this.
Totally into a game show. Okay, so our first contestant is you. You're our first contestant.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, congratulations. Out of all the thousands and thousands of auditions that we get for the Twiniversity podcast home game, I am so happy that we chose you. And it's not because of your beautiful hair and stunning looks, although that plays 20% into it because that's the way that it's got to go.
I managed to slap some makeup on this morning just for this because I'm so happy to play this game.
You did so good. Now, congratulations, because the other reason why you were accepted is because you have 8 million kids, or just 3, but they're all girls. And therefore, you automatically win the award. So congratulations.
Yay. Audience applause.
Oh my gosh. So 3 under 3 is what we're looking at right now. So how old are the twinies now?
They're 9 months. And my 3-year-old turns 3 today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to her. So that's really exciting.
Oh my gosh. So first of all, you have a house full of girls.
Yes. My poor husband.
How is he handling this?
We're working on it. I think the whole twin thing every day, take day by day, little steps.
Oh, well, we have no choice, right? This is the only way that we could do it. But the good news is you made it to 33 weeks, 5 days. Which I love. So I'm a few days beyond you at 34 weeks on the day. So I'm right there. You had some NICU time.
Yes.
So about 5 weeks in total?
Yes, 5 weeks in total. So one twin, I have Lila and Nova. Those are my girls. And one of them, Nova, was a little bit smaller. So she stayed an extra week.
Oh. My gosh. Okay. That's tough though, too. How did it work? Like when you had the twinies and you have your older chick at home and you moved for a job. So your whole village is back in Canada and here you are in California. And you're like, everybody's home. How did it work when you had your daughter at home and then the twinies in the NICU?
It was not easy. So I think for us, as soon as we found out we were having twins, it was like instantaneously click, we got to move. Like we have to be closer to family. So now we're in Georgia. So when the twins were 3 months, we made the move.
I missed that part. I thought you were going to move. So you've been all over the country already.
We've been all over the country. So we
that
just
alone, that's a huge move. Yes. Holy smoke.
It was nuts. It was, I mean, you think twins is nuts, and then you add on all these other layers of life, and it just is even more nuts. So happily now we're here. We have a broader network. Toronto's only 2 hours flight away from Atlanta. So, and both my sisters live here.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh, good.
Backtrack to when I was pregnant and when the babies were born, we didn't have anyone. It was still like pretty COVID-y, so people weren't exactly traveling. Yeah. As well, like if your kids are in the NICU, people are not coming in there. Yeah. And especially not in COVID time. So we couldn't, even if my sister did fly over. Yeah. But it was after the babies were born. So we had to basically cherry pick who we could to be on call for our daughter, Adeline, who we're like, okay, you're on speed dial. You're a friend of mine who we've only known each other a couple of years, but now we're like fast friends. And she came over as soon as, the call happened where I had to go in for my C-section, and she was staying over with my daughter.
Listen,
we didn't have a babysitter or anything at that point. And
when did you know that you were going to go early though? Like how far into your pregnancy did you realize that, like, okay, I need to start building the support network?
I would say probably 2 months before is when I started panicking and started being like, okay, we're not going to be able to do this without help. We have to figure this out. What are we going to do? And the solution was we got to throw some cash at it. Yeah. And one of my friends who's a twin mom, she was like, just break the bank for the first couple of years, because you're going to need that help if you don't have your village. If we don't have grandma living with us or my sister's there. So we said, okay, we're going to hire a night nurse. And that in itself was an experience, but it saved the day. Like that made all of the difference. But the hard thing about hiring people when you don't know when you're going to deliver is, when do you hire them for? At what point do they start? And so in the end, it kind of came down to the wire, and it was a video interview after interviewing a bunch of people. And the one woman that I really liked, she was a bit higher in price. And in the end, it was like, no, we're going with her. I vibe with her. Yeah. She's great. And, she flew up as soon as the babies came out of the hospital, and it was like, here you go, here's our children.
And there you go. And that's how it's so interesting, because some people don't really understand the need to have the help, right? We have families that are overseas, or families that don't have their family like you did. And they're like, we're going to just try it. We're just going to go at it. And then you start I should not say that it's everybody, but often you'll start making little mistakes, especially if you have an older child too, where you don't want to neglect the older child. And then you have to deal with your own recovery, and then your trauma of an early delivery, and then a NICU stay. So you guys totally did it right. I'm glad that for your family, this worked. But even before then, you were doing things on the right path. So now you come from a medical family.
I do. Yeah. So my sister is an OB-GYN who followed in my dad's footsteps, who is an OB-GYN in Toronto, probably delivered over, thousands and thousands, 10,000 babies in his career. And then my sister is a nurse, and then my mom and my grandmother, all nurses. So there were vagina textbooks all over my house.
I love this.
Yeah.
Why didn't you become a nurse? How did you break out of that cycle?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think I was just rebellion. I just didn't want to go down the path of everyone else, and just wanted to be my own person. So, and I went into psychology as my undergrad, because it was like the closest, least medically thing I could get to that was acceptable for my parents.
That's perfect. So they were okay. They were like, all right, you got something.
They were okay.
You got something there. So now when we were talking earlier today, and I know that everybody listening right now is like, go back to this. I want to talk about the move. I do want to focus, because I have trouble focusing, but I want to talk about this whole Ted Lassoing the crap out of your medical team.
Yes.
Now, this is something that you and I have very, very much in common about making sure that we're all on the same page and on a positive page, not just on the same page. I really want to know your end of this. And especially, like, I love Ted Lasso. And for those of you that haven't watched Ted Lasso, by now, he's just a part of pop culture.
Yes.
So hopefully you understand that it's really just a motivator, a team builder, a connector, and just ultimately somebody that, despite so many odds, can build something miraculous. And that's kind of what Tad is.
At the same time. And just like
to a fault as well.
Yes, to a fault, and too sweet. And for me, going into the NICU and having these angel nurses and angel doctors around me, like, my perspective only had to be like, I have to be the nicest version of myself that I can be, even though I'm in pain, even though my stomach's been cut open, even though my daughter's at home, even though I have twins in the NICU. Like, these people, your care team who is there, are amazing. And they're there taking care of your most prized possessions. How can you not be the kindest version of yourself? And like, you just have to Ted Lasso that SHIT out of the nurses. Buy them gifts, smile if you can smile through the pain, make yourself a person to them, as far as like, tell them your story, ask them about theirs. In the end, they're people too, just like you are. So for me, that was really important. I think coming from the medical background too, I had a lot of faith in the medical system, because I know my family's all in that field. So I felt a connection a little bit as well. So I think it made it a little bit easier for me as well, just to be like, I'm here to work together with you, because I know you are taking care of the most prized possessions in my life.
But I will say it's not as easy for everybody, right? No. I think, truthfully too, your Canadianness probably also plays a big role into your kindness too. And not to kind of go against my New Yorkness, because I feel like we get a very bad rap. Although we do. And there's a part of us, we're okay with that. I have to be honest with you. I hope that Canadians are okay with just being unbelievably, amazingly lovely, a country of happiness and joy. But not everybody has a good experience. And so for those families that are going into a situation where maybe it's less than ideal, and maybe they have a lot more anxiety than most, or maybe their medical team is actually causing more anxiety than necessary, how do you recommend that people like turn it around? Like, where does it start? Like, where does the Ted Lassoing start? Does it start on your first OB visit, where you go in and you're like, da 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 da, I'm so great, you're gonna love me, I'm the best patient ever? How does it start without being so like annoyingly sweet?
For sure. And it has to start at that first appointment, the first time. And I really know that my situation is probably really different, because in the midst of COVID, I'm an extrovert. I come to a doctor's appointment and I'm like, hi, I'm so happy to talk to another human that isn't my child or my husband. So it was a very different scenario for me, in the sense that I'm an extrovert as well. And then also because I'm like, sure, let's my vagina hang out, go ahead. Like, a lot of people, people haven't even been down there. So that's a very hard scenario. Yeah. And I think, again, like, you have to, trust that the person is there because they want to be in that job. This is their choice in life, and they're there to help you. So remembering that. And then I think also creating some sort of rapport where they're not just patient zero. It's hard when you have different doctors, for sure. But I think if you can have a little bit of time for small talk, that is it's just like one little piece of it that's going to help, I think, on both sides, like help you have faith and that sort of thing.
All right. Well, I want you to sit right there. And then when we come back, I want to tell you what one of my biggest tips are to winning over my team of whatever it is, whether it's work, medical, people at a restaurant. I'm going to give you my number one tip. And then I want to know if you agree with that or not. Okay. So everybody just sit back there, sit right there. We will be right back in 2 seconds. All right, Tamara, here is my big tip. Drum roll, please. the first thing I do is I go in, and no matter where I am, I ask them their name. And I say, hey, I'm Natalie Diaz. And they go, hi. And I say, who are you? And then they say, usually, even at a doctor's office, they're often caught by surprise. They never even expect that. But I always also do that. Like if you are a waiter or a waitress and you don't say, hello, my name is Jack, I will say, what's your name? And then I would be like, hey, Jack, how's your day going? And that's it. That's literally all I do. And immediately, I don't know, maybe that's the extrovert in me too, but I genuinely do care who these people are. So I'm not even doing it as like a ploy to make them like me, but I'm like, dude, if like you're going to do something for me and you're going to check me into this office, and I know I'm going to come to this office every 2 weeks for the next, hopefully, 9 months. That's the best case scenario, is that I'm going to be sick of you. I want to know who you are.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And it's as basic as saying good morning when you see somebody and you wake up. And it should be kind of seen that way, as like, this is normal to say, hi, what's your name? How are you? Hey, I'm going to be here in your office for what seems like forever of a pregnancy. And yeah, let's chat. And let me find out a little bit more. Hey, you have some family photos on the wall. Look at that. Who are they? They're so cute. Like it's that basic kind of discussion. And then it can lead into other steps as far as like when I was in the NICU, I was just like, if I'm going to get you donuts every day because I know that this is going to help, I'm going to do it. You know, if I'm going to just hang out a little bit at the desk, ask you how your day was, even though I know my day was crazy too, you still have a life, I'm going to do it. And the return that you get on this is incredible. Really, I had one nurse that is just my like spirit angel nurse who, you know, I was feeling really, really down and didn't even know it so much, but she was just so nice. And she was also a lactation consultant. And when you think about how much people are up in your stuff, like you think you want to break down some barriers. And this amazing nurse, Stacy, she was like, I'm going to go get you some warm blankets. I'm going to tuck you into bed. She put me in this like cocoon of warmth, and I just started bawling. I was just like, this is the nicest thing that anybody has ever done. And it made me feel so good because I didn't have my family around. And so they became my extended family while I was in the hospital. And then while my babies were in the hospital for that entire time.
I'm a big fan of just putting out whatever I want out there into the world. And I know that people do get anxious, and especially dads sometimes honestly get a little rude. I have to tell you the truth. Like it happens even to me, like if I go to somebody's house for lactation support, but I really try to just remind people that not everybody could express themselves in the same way. So for me, I don't get bothered because I know that some people's fear comes off as anger.
Right.
And I know that nurses also know this, but if there's a way that you could put yourself in check, or even, you know, put your partner in check and be like, ugh, like, you know, just calm it down for 2 seconds. I know that you don't mean it, you know, don't make anybody get defensive. But if you pay attention to teeny tiny little details, even Ted Lassoing the crap also goes for like your mail person, the person who delivers your mail. It's just a common sense of humanity. But if you are kind of at the mercy of somebody in the hospital, that's when it becomes so much more important. So let's just say hypothetically that we have a doctor that no matter what, we just can't crack. Yeah. They're just like, they have a stick up their butt. They are just ridiculous. What do you think is something that you could do, either pulling from your personal or professional experience, that you could either change the way that you think about it to get them on your team, or to actually have like a strategy to get them on your team?
That's a good one. I think a lot, there's a few things that happen there when you have somebody who's like their bedside manner just doesn't agree with you. And the ultimate end to a lot of people is they switch doctors.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people do, or ask for another doctor, which in extreme cases you should totally do. You advocate for yourself and be in the best situation you can create for yourself. I think a big problem, and I was guilty of this with my first pregnancy, is having this, the birth plan is such a big deal now. And what that means is like a 3-page list of what you have in your head as this ideal birth, which honestly, birth is Russian roulette. It's who knows what's going to happen.
The truth.
And so I think going through my second pregnancy and just being like, all right, I have one request throughout this thing, and it was delayed cord clamping. And I want that to be like the one thing that I focus on. Whereas in my first birth, I was like, I need this, I need dim lighting, and so there's this, I think, balance of like expectation. And then as far as somebody who you just are not vibing with, I think if you tried to like break out the humor, if you try to make yourself as human as possible, then I think there are points when you need to move on and find another doctor.
Amen. And I think that people don't realize that that's an option.
Yeah.
And like honestly, like Tamara, like people just feel like this is who I'm going to, this is who I'm stuck with. That's not a thing. You're never stuck with somebody. We have found doctors of people here in New York that I've had them switch at 33 weeks.
Right.
Because if you're that miserable, what are we doing here? This is the person that's going to be part of your life story. I talk about it all the time. Like, I'm like, this is an imprinting moment in your psyche. This is it. Yes. You're getting this. Do you want that person to play a role in your life story? And if you say no, then it's okay to move on. Nobody's going to be offended. They don't put a picture up of you behind the cash register and say, don't let this person in again. That's not a thing.
Right.
I don't know what people get so nervous about. I think maybe sometimes it is because they may have had a hard time finding somebody, but hypothetically, if you can't move, right? Because we do have people that are in like the rural parts of the country that are 3 hours away from their doctor's office. My biggest tip, which I've had this plenty of times too, with either me or the kids' doctors. And like, we had this one pulmonologist for my son when he was young, and she was just mean.
Yeah.
And she was like crotchety. And I like would come home and I would feel so unsettled, and everybody's like, but this is who you have to go to. She holds the magic keys to, this particular, situation that you have. And so I just decided that I'm literally going to just rip the freaking Band-Aid off. And so
like, what's your problem?
And so the next visit that I went in and I said, how's your day going? And she said, fine. And then she would talk about something. I said, actually, could we go back to that for a second? I said, can I ask you really, are you okay?
Yeah.
I said, because I know that you're not wanting to probably portray what this person that you are to me and my child. Like, what can I do to help you?
Yes.
If there's some stress that you're having, is there something that I could help you with? Do you need me to just take a minute and file stuff for you?
Yes.
Are you overwhelmed? Do you need me to make an appointment for your dog because their nails need to be cut? But I'm like, I don't think people really want to be mean. And I don't think people want to be rude. I don't think that they're aware of what they're doing. Yes. But if you go in and you don't come at them with your wagging finger going, you're the worst thing that's ever happened to me. If you just say, are you okay?
Yeah. And half the time you're right. It's like you have to, I think, give people the benefit of the doubt in that you're right. They're probably not trying to be mean. Maybe they are going through some crazy scenario that you can't even fathom. And they're trying to, they're taking it out on you, which isn't fair. And, sometimes you're like, why are you doing this job? It just doesn't make sense. No. Maybe you should be not in a customer facing job.
Yeah, especially in pediatrics and obstetrics. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yes.
But it's hilarious because I ended up being with that doctor for 12 years. Wow. And I would say have an extraordinary relationship despite the fact that she's actually retired now and still will send me a happy Mother's Day every year. Mm-hmm. And it was just a minute instead of saying like, I'm giving up, I don't want to go back here. And she really did. She really did help my son with his respiratory issue, which nobody else had. We had gone a bazillion other places. So sometimes if you can't, that was my last hurrah, of me being, if not, I would have just accepted that we were going to be miserable, and I could use it as a teaching lesson for my children of how not to behave to other humans, because you could also use that as the kids grow. But if you feel like you're in a situation where, and you feel comfortable approaching that person, that's got to be the other thing too. Like I felt comfortable approaching her because I don't want to say I'm not afraid of people, but I'm really not, because I know at the end of the day, I could just get up and walk out.
New Yorker.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not too stressed, but no, I'm not a prisoner of anybody. Yes. And I know that I always have a choice. I also, for a hot minute, worked for Disney. And one thing that they like pound into your skull is that the customer always has a choice and they don't have to choose you.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? Same thing the other way around. I am the customer. I don't have to choose you.
Right.
So you can really just get that. But going back to the positivity, which that basically is positivity. How did you find that you were able to kind of build this team with having a family that's in the medical profession? Because I can't imagine people love that. When you're like, oh, my father read XYZ, they were like, oh my God, she's coming back in. This is
so apparently there's this thing called the nurse's curse that I didn't find out until I was in the hospital, which is like those people that come in with a medical background and have family in there, they're in a situation where the doctors say something always goes wrong with them because there's all this more pressure.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that there was a term for this that they have. But, I made sure that I brought that information in the same way that nepotism works in, the corporate world, it works in this too. And I didn't do it in a way that it was like totally obnoxious.
Yeah.
It was more like, oh my goodness, I actually read my doctor's bio, which people do not do. I went and I found my doctor, I read their bio, and I was like, oh, you work for Kaiser. Guess what? My sister is a doctor and she works for Kaiser too. I wonder if you guys know each other. Yeah, funny story. And, bring it together in that sense, not like, you better tell me everything that's going to be correct because my sister is a doctor, and not bringing it in that way. And the fine balance between advocating for yourself and being nice about it, it has to happen in a way that it's like, you're being nice, but at the same time, you're like, by the way, don't give me any shit because I can find out if this is the right way to go or not, but you don't want to say that. So it was a fine balance. And for myself personally, one thing that I was really aware of throughout the whole crazy pregnancy thing was I'm high risk. I'm 42, so I'm advanced maternal age, geriatric. My sister was like, you're an old bag, basically. So you're the worst kind of patient for the doctor.
Thank you, sis.
I was like,
I appreciate that. Yes.
It's true, but thank you. And then I also have other conditions that created this high risk environment too. So I knew that if you can't advocate for yourself at this point in your life, which is the most important part of your life, when can you? So I was like, I'm putting all of that aside. Yeah. And I'm going to be nice about it, but I'm also going to try and like make sure that I'm getting cared for.
Good.
So, and on top of that, especially because I know that there's a bias. I'm a Black woman. That makes me a next level high risk on top of all the other high risk stuff that I had before, the C-section. I have a condition called epilepsy, which you've heard of. I had placenta previa. I'm geriatric. So there were all these things. And then on top of that is the fact that I'm a Black woman getting cared for in the US. And if people don't understand what that means, is that people have an unconscious bias that they're going to treat Black people that are pregnant differently than they're going to treat other people, which leads to an increased morbid death rates among Black women. Yep. And it's not that people aren't aware that they're doing this, but it's there. And this was, on the forefront and the back of my brain to always be like, I'm going to advocate for myself because of this and make sure that people see me as a human. And that's where it comes into like, tell your story. My sister will always be like, bring me there into the room so that that I have a family. I'm not just a patient number 5. And I think that's really important. And what I was being taught from my dad and my sister, as far as like, don't make yourself just a number, make yourself a story. And
That is make yourself a story. That is so, so important. And going back to the whole maternal mortality, for Black women, it is 3 to 4 times higher
Right.
to have an incidence of death or some other extreme complication. We've talked, actually, you know, what's funny, you're going to hear about it quite a few times on this season, which is really, really great.
That's great.
Because if now we're like, okay, we know that there's an issue and we all talk about it.
Yeah.
If we all talk about it, then no one could say they didn't know.
Yes.
Doesn't matter where you live in the world, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter.
And I'll give you an example. So when I was in the NIC, or when I was in the hospital, I hadn't been discharged yet. And one of the bias is that Black women actually tolerate pain better. And then the other bias is that they have an increased risk for addiction to medication. Now, I know from my sister, she's like, take the drugs. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're in pain, don't try and tough it out. Take the drugs. It's going to help you get through. And so at one point, I was like, the time was ready. The clock had dinged, and I was like, ready for another pain med. And so I call in the nurse and I'm like, hey, can I get that pain medication? And she was like, are you sure? She was like hesitating on giving me the medication. And in the back of my mind, I was like, ping, is this one of those times?
Yeah.
And basically was like, I need to advocate here. And I was like, give me the drugs. Like, I'm not hesitating here. I'm not starting to second guess how I feel and how my body is. Good. And I was like, yes, I need them. And so that's just one example. And it's like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know if this is the case, but I know I need to advocate for myself.
This is like the key to the universe right here. And but it's not only during pregnancy, it's actually for your whole freaking life.
Right. That's true.
I think that once you become a mother, the cave person that is inside of all of us is like, no, this will now be ending.
Yes.
My voice will now be shining, hopefully, knock on wood. My superstitions are coming out. But for me, I know that parenting changes a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And if you ever needed a reason or an excuse to start speaking up, then here we go, kids.
Yes.
This is it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is the time. And when you think about it, you have these little itty bitty little babies you realize that you have to care for. And it's the most emotional thing ever, because you're also becoming a parent again, maybe. And you realize that you have to fight for them, and fighting for them means also fighting for yourself.
1,000,000%. Tamara, how are you going to
Tamara,
why am I keep doing this?
It's okay.
No, it's not.
There's so many different ways.
Do you know, I hate when people call me Emily. Do you know that's my biggest one? It's my biggest pet peeve out of everything that I could do. Why
Emily?
I don't know. It happened yesterday too. And here, you want to talk about advocating for yourself? I just accept that that's my other name.
I know.
I literally just accept the fact that that's my new name. Okay.
And you're like, do I interrupt and say this?
I don't even bother.
So
I think maybe when I was like 16, I gave up. I think I speak too fast. And so when I say Natalie, they just hear Emily. I don't know.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
I'll take it. But then I just say it's my own fault. But then I want to say I should advocate for myself. But then I'm like, I don't care. That's not a battle worth fighting. I'll just, as long as I get what I want. But how are you going to teach your daughters to start speaking up and not waiting for that moment of motherhood to advocate for themselves and to be a good, spirit in the universe? How do you start that now?
It is hard, because even just with my 3-year-old, obviously modeling the behavior is really good. And I mean, I'm loud, but also just modeling like the good mornings, the hi, how are you? Let's share. My 3-year-old obviously is a toddler. So all of these things are very difficult right now because of their lack of impulse control. And so just, the kindness thing, even just when she does something totally stupid, just trying so hard not to fly off the handle and take that breath and be like, yesterday she spit in my face. Yep. Oh yeah. It was one of the most, I started laughing and then was like, how did you just do that? So apparently there's this kid, Thomas, in her school who's been doing this. So
That's it. I'm out of here. I'm going to speak to Thomas's mom and mispronounce her name. That's what I'm going to do.
So anyways, just taking that pause and being like, I could really react very poorly right now, but I had to like take that breath and be like, okay, I'm going to try and diffuse the situation here and just like keep kind and realize that you're struggling communicating something, which is basically what adults are also doing, struggling to communicate something that they want and they're not getting. And so trying to make her aware of that.
Person.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, it was one of those moments.
It's tough. Everybody's going to have one, by the way. So nobody could judge anybody. We all have those. And you know that no matter what you do next, that this is an issue, right? Yeah. Like when you have like these big monumental parenting situations, you're like,
oh yeah,
like, that's
it. Like
cleansing breath.
The Lamaze breathing.
Oh my goodness. Everybody is going to have, that's the age where I'm not going to say it's toddlers. It's just testing.
Yes.
Because they could test you if you don't figure out how to react appropriately at 3, that whole terrible 3s, terrible 2s, 3-nagers, you're going to have that through the actual teenage years if you do not play your cards right.
And that's what I keep hearing. And so we're trying to get ahead of all of that right now. Like we had to buy a book for her, and this is totally normal. Hands are not for hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And that, these things that was one of the ways where we are like, okay, there's a book called The ABCs of Kindness. Like we try and read that, especially when she's having a tough time right now, communicating and being very toddlery and pushing those limits and those boundaries. So
the good news is for Nova and Layla, they will now have the benefit of your whole world experience.
Yes.
So that's always the plus, but holy smoke, because if you want to talk about Ted Lassoing the shit out of stuff, like it starts in your family.
Yes.
Right. So forget now we have to figure out how we take Spitter McMurphy and convert this onto our team. And it really is, there's all these little moments that are going to pop up. And I know that I always try, like for me, this, the way that I deal with it, and this is probably healthy or not healthy, I don't know, but maybe your minor in psychology could help. But I always pretend that somebody's in the house, because would I say this outside?
Right.
Would I react like this outside? And
if there were other people watching you do this. Yeah.
So would I do that? And I remember once now I am a very, very hot-blooded Italian girl, married a wonderfully passionate Puerto Rican man. Like there is heat in our house at times. And I remember when the twinies were about 3, we bought a CD called Screen-Free Parenting.
Mm-hmm.
I smashed the shit out of it. I stomped it to bits and pieces after listening to it. And I'm like, does this person think I'm a moron? Like this is not reality in this house. And so while that wasn't for me, and I decided to take my aggression out on a CD back in, 1872 when I bought that. But it's so funny how really the Ted Lassoing is going to start during pregnancy or before, depending on when you're listening to this. And then it's going to really evolve into your parenting world, because your team is your team.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about the girls. I know that you have an unbelievable head on your shoulders. And despite the fact, I feel like your sister's going to keep you in check, because that's what sisters do.
They do.
And so we're lucky with that. That's one of the best things I think about that your 3 girls, is that they're going to have 2 other sisters to keep them in check. But I'm so thankful that you took the time out of your crazy day to talk to me wildly. And I love that you get to now be a part of something that you've been listening to as I'm in your ears as you're feeding babies. But
I'm so happy to have done this.
It's the circle of life. Yes. And it wasn't scary. Could you tell people that podcasts aren't scary? Like when everybody's like,
it was a joy.
Thank you. Everybody's always nervous.
Despite the Tamaras and the I don't remember.
Whatever I'm saying anymore. I can't even say your name. I now have a fear of it. I am now officially afraid. I want to say Tammany Hall for the ta. And this is now the word association that I'm playing in my head. But regardless, you are one of us. And if anything, if I see you on the street, I will just yell, "Twin mom!" And then you will know
I'm going to run over and like give you the biggest hug ever because you've
That's
just
the
been
best.
so great to all of us in our lives and like honestly changed it for me.
Well, I'm coming down to Hotlanta next year in 2003. I got October 21st. It's already on the calendar.
Okay.
So for a baby show down there. So get ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Sign me up. I'm going to be there.
I cannot wait. I'm so thankful. I'm very humbled by the fact that all of my guests come on and hang out with us. Now, are we allowed to stalk you with questions?
Of course.
I love that. So we're going to put some information in the show notes for appropriate stalking, but don't forget that you could always email us at community@twiniversity.com. We are very easily found also on every freaking social platform. You can just slide into our DMs if you have questions about Ted Lassoing, about that your father's a doctor and is being a real moron to your doctors. It's all about who you know. And you now know us.
I do also co-host a podcast called The Mom Sync. And I also have a blog that I haven't written on in a little too long, but I will get back to once the twin craziness is kind of settled a little bit, called hackingmomlife.com.
Okay, well, we'll be expecting new episodes by the time this broadcasts.
Oh,
okay?
yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. All right, my love, you have the best day ever. And for those of you in the world, go back to your regular days. We're going to put the big old E on this. If you notice, we gave up halfway through.
Yeah, we gave up.
Yeah, that's it. That's just what happens. So this is, not safe for the office or whatever that acronym is. I don't even know what it is. But until next time, guys, see you later, alligators. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.